I'm still a person named Mr. Beat, don't you know? You may remember me from this video. What the heck? Where did it go? Oh, come back over here. Come on. Thank you. So, yes, that video in which I counted down the 5 closest presidential elections in American history. And another presidential election is about to happen that most experts, the pollsters, the pundits, they assume it's going to be close. It's looking like it's going to be another close election. Or is it? The fact of the matter is, we do not know for sure that it will be close. Polls can be unreliable. In fact, it could be a landslide victory for or a landslide victory for. A landslide victory is when a political candidate wins an election overwhelmingly. In this video, we're looking at the biggest presidential election landslides in American history. But while these elections weren't even close, you might be surprised to find out that some of them were actually predicted to be close. That's wild, man. So let's count down the 5 most lopsided presidential elections in American history. But wait, what about George? Yeah, let's exclude the first 2 presidential elections in American history in which George Washington was so popular that he won 100% of both the electoral vote and popular vote. Everybody knew Washington was going to be president pretty much the moment he said he'd be down being the president. In reality, it was the 3rd presidential election, the election of 1796, that was the true competitive presidential election. Also, before we start this countdown, this video is once again sponsored in part by Delete Me. Did you know that your personal data is sold online by data brokers? Anyone can buy your personal details. Yes, even your enemies, who could get your personal information to dox you or stalk you or harass you. Well, I personally recommend Delete Me to make sure that your personal information stays private. What I like about Delete Me is that it sends you these personalized privacy reports showing what they found, where they found it, and what they deleted. I've been using it for a while and they've already scrubbed my personal information from all kinds of websites. Get 20% off Delete Me consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/MrBeat and use code MrBeat at checkout. There's also this QR code that's been hanging out here that you can just, put your phone up to and do your thing. But that's joindeleteme.com/MrBeat, code MrBeat. Thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video. Alrighty then, here are the 5 most lopsided presidential elections in American history, in my opinion. Oh, and remember, I consider both the electoral vote and the popular vote, you afternoon farmers. Number 5, the election of 1972. I know it's difficult to imagine today, but in 1972, Richard Nixon was pretty freaking popular. The economy was strong, and his main opponent, George McGovern, ran a horrible campaign. Nixon won an impressive 520 electoral votes. McGovern won just 17. In fact, McGovern won just 1 state, Massachusetts, and the District of Columbia, which has voted for the Democratic Party candidate literally in every presidential election, okay? There were really only about 3, maybe 4 swing states in this election, meaning there were only 3 states where it was even competitive. Nixon won nearly 61% of the popular vote. McGovern, only 37.5%. In 7 states, Nixon won more than 70% of the popular vote. 78.2% of all voters in Mississippi picked Nixon. Dang! Mississippi? Number 4, the election of 1984. Inflation has gone down! Inflation has gone down! Let's go! That was a common feeling among Americans in 1984. Not only that, unemployment had gone down and the American economy was doing better than it had been in several years. Reagan had also successfully portrayed himself as more than capable, dealing with foreign affairs during a particularly tense period of the Cold War. In the election of 1984, Reagan won an astounding 525 electoral votes, more than any other president in American history. Walter Mondale, his main opponent, but only won his home state of Minnesota and, you guessed it, the District of Columbia. In December, someone would ask Reagan what he wanted for Christmas. Well, Minnesota would have been nice, he joked. There were basically only 3 swing states this election. Reagan won nearly 60% of the popular vote, although Mondale did win nearly 41% of the popular vote, which is why I didn't put this election higher on this list. Nearly 75% of voters in Utah picked Reagan. Notably, Reagan got millions of Democrats to vote for him. Historians even call them, quote, Reagan Democrats. As many as 26% of Democrats voted for him in this election, according to one exit poll. That's a big freaking deal in the modern era, at least. This was the last election in which the winner got more than 500 electoral votes and won the popular vote by double digits. Number 3, the election of 1804. The only thing controversial about Thomas Jefferson in 1804 was the fact that Aaron Burr had been his vice president, a dude who had just become a fugitive and fled west after murdering Alexander Hamilton in a duel. Now that the 12th Amendment had passed, Jefferson got to pick his running mate this time, and yeah, he wasn't going to pick the dude who murdered a founding father. Instead, he picked the very popular George Clinton. No, not that. George Clinton. Yes, that one. You must have forgotten about him. Anyway, yes, Jefferson was also extremely popular since the economy was doing well. He also was responsible for doubling the size of the country with the Louisiana Purchase, even though arguably, you know, it wasn't constitutional for the president to just buy Louisiana like that, which Jefferson's opponents, the Federalists, argued, although few Americans seemed to care. The Federalists struggled to organize, but eventually they did run Charles Cotesworth Pinckney to defeat Jefferson. Well, Pinckney got his butt kicked. Jefferson won 162 electoral votes to Pinckney's 14. Pinckney won just 2 states, Rhode Island and Connecticut. Okay, well, he got 2 of Maryland's electoral votes as well. Jefferson even won most of the New England states, a part of the country which typically heavily favored Federalists. Jefferson won more than 73% of the popular vote. Pinckney? Oh, that fella won less than 30% of the popular vote. Ouch. Pinckney wasn't even on the ballot in 3 states, meaning Jefferson won 100% of the popular vote in those 3 states. Jefferson won more than 87% of the popular vote in 4 other states. Only 1 state, New Hampshire, was a swing state in this election. That all said, I should point out that in 1804, many electors were not directly chosen by voters, and few Americans were even eligible to vote in the first place. So we're just mostly talking rich white dudes picking the president at this time, all right? Number 2, the election of 1936. Even though the Great Depression had been going on for 7 years by that point, Franklin Roosevelt and his New Deal policies were so popular that even his main election opponent, Alf Landon, agreed with most of them. FDR won 46 of 48 states and an amazing 523 electoral votes. Landon only won Vermont and Maine. Roosevelt won nearly 61% of the popular vote. Landon won less than 37%. In 11 states, FDR won more than 70% of the popular vote. More than 97% of voters in Mississippi and nearly 99% of voters in South Carolina picked Roosevelt. I mean, look at this county map. That's a lot of blue and dark blue, man. Before Election Day, crazy enough, many people predicted that Landon would win this election. One magazine even predicted Landon would win with more than 57% of the popular vote. Again, he won less than 37% of the popular vote. Number 1, the election of 1820. Today, most Americans have no idea who James Monroe is, but in 1820, he was such a popular president that everyone else was too afraid to run against him. Yep, he ran for re-election basically unopposed. The only other president to pull that off was George Washington. Indeed, Monroe was a unifying figure that stayed neutral on most issues and listened to a wide variety of political opinions. However, Monroe's popularity can mostly be explained by the fact that the country was simply just much more united back then. This was, after all, the era of good feelings. Well, would you look at that? I have a video about the era of good feelings. I have a feeling you're gonna watch that later on. I said, I have a feeling you're going to watch that video later on.
Do we have an understanding?
Monroe won every state in this election and got all but one of the electoral votes. Even electors in Monroe's opposing political party, the Federalist Party, voted for him. That said, he did get all of the electoral votes from Massachusetts when only around 32% of people voted for him there. Regardless, Monroe got more than 78% of the popular vote and 100% of the popular vote in 3 states. In 6 other states, he got more than 90% of the popular vote. And unlike the election of 1936, basically everyone knew Monroe would win this election well before Election Day. I should also mention that there were no swing states in this election. So that is it, my fellow sauce boxes. Those were the 5 most lopsided presidential elections in American history. In my opinion, bro. Calm down. As always, I must shout out some honorable mentions, like the election of 1808, election of 1816, election of 1964, and election of 1980. At this point, you might be thinking, will there ever be a lopsided presidential election in the United States ever again? And the answer is yes. Of course. Duh. As long as we stay a democratic republic. Then again, if we become a dictatorship, I think there will be a lot of lopsided elections. Please vote. But what do you think? Am I uninformed and tacky? Were there any lopsided presidential elections that I left out? Let me know down below as always. And a reminder that I have made a video about every single presidential election in American history, don't you know? There should be a playlist over there somewhere. There might be, I don't know. And I even wrote this here book about every single presidential election in American history. That's what it looks like. I'll need to update it again here soon. Thanks for staying curious.